Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dr. Cammy Goes Keto. And we're here today with Mike Collins, a sugar-free man who's helping me do live processing of my thoughts and behavior over my food and over what keeps me from being on plan and keeping on my ketogenic diet. And I'm just going to report and sign in that I'm on day 5 today of complete abstinence. I've had food plan that I'm following. I mean, like I changed out some green beans for a little bit of some other vegetable or something. So there's just little changes like that going on. I have not had any caffeine, and I am reporting that I'm had a little bit of a dull headache that's kind of been going on most of the day, but it's just there. It doesn't really bother me. I'm not taking anything for it. And that's been for just the last maybe 48 hours. And I'm tired. I've been sleeping a lot too. So I don't know if that really has anything to do with the caffeine or not. I was thinking I'm not on a lot of caffeine because I was drinking like 1 or maybe 2 regular cups of decaf coffee a day. But I was also drinking a little bit of decaf coffee, which does have some caffeine in it. And I kind of wanted you to comment a little bit, Mike, about about sensitivity and whether or not people can be sensitive for just that small amount of caffeine.
Yeah, 100%. That is like one of the phenomena that everybody is always asking about. And they do it in sugar too, but in coffee, I don't know, somehow they think it's better to wean off or, come down or whatever. And it doesn't matter. Like it really doesn't. You can wean down to half a cup, a quarter cup, whatever. But when you start, the withdrawals begin, and they're just normally, because people I know have quit 5 and 10 times, they're always similar, and mine were always similar. You know what I mean? It didn't matter. I tried to wean down. I tried just cut it off, no matter where I was, whatever. So it doesn't really matter. That lingering headache is just what it is. It's it's your body on zero caffeine, and again, that happens on sugar as well. Like it's going to happen. Abstinence is the goal, and abstinence is required to even understand your level of sensitivity. Another place to understand your level of sensitivity, and I'm not suggesting this or, implying it or anything, but if you slip, recognize the feeling, you know what I mean? Right away, like recognize, be very aware of what you feel like. Because if you can get 10 days or 20 or 30, especially if you can get past 30 or whatever, and you have a little coffee, you're going to feel like you did a line of cocaine. You're going to feel very up, or, snorted some meth or something. It's really, you're going to feel really what it does. And you're also going to feel the crash on the other side more intense. So yeah, absolutely. You can, the level of sensitivity, I always hear about the half-life stuff, right? Like,
Oh,
it's got
yeah.
half-life of this and it's gone. But I don't think one person, and I have a little caffeine group, it's got like 800 people on Facebook or something. I've never heard, so I've been doing this kind of, it's not a sideline because it is part of the program. The crash, the similar crashes, the similar ups and downs. Everybody's a little different depending on their habit, but the symptoms or the recoveries are basically the same, just like sugar. It becomes pattern recognition. The people that are harmed the worst, I think, in this whole thing that we talk about, in this whole recovery, in this whole change process, are the people with huge caffeine habits. They have a methamphetamine recovery, and they have a post-acute withdrawal syndrome that is insane. They literally have anhedonia for months. They cannot. And the reason I know it's the caffeine, because they eventually get out of it, right? They eventually come back to just normal. They've healed up enough, their adrenals and everything else. So, I think the era of, it's just sugar, it's just coffee, it's just caffeine is ending. And the ties to metabolic health, moreover, metabolic psychiatry, are, we're starting to understand. Again, I've said this many times, but we do not have the diagnostic tools to prove some of the things that I'm saying, but we do indeed have tens of thousands of people who have gone through our processes and have reported this. And it's not, I don't think at that level, I want to get some graduate students in here and to start categorizing this more. It's not anecdotal anymore. The caffeine and the sugar, the effects of the brain and body and emotions are like, I don't even need to study the body stuff because we got plenty of people doing that for 100 years. But this brain and emotion stuff was super.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the sugar and the caffeine is so available. You walk into a store and it's in your face so strong, that sugar. And then there's a Starbucks on every corner. And so there's a lot of subjects out there to study who
Yeah.
are really addicted to these things and have a hard time. I also think that addicts, like people who have addictive kind of behaviors, do you think that most of those people are HSPs, highly sensitive people, or that they are at least more represented in that group?
That's a great question. And I do believe that in our group is specifically, and because, I mean, Elaine Aaron says that, I don't know if it's Aaron or Aaron's son, I think it's Aaron, the woman who, kind of kicked it off with the book, The Highly Sensitive Person. She believes that it's only 10 to 20, somewhere around 10 or 15% of the population is a highly sensitive person. But in our groups, it's much, much higher of the percentage of the people have or seem to be, or, they at this juncture, like the other stuff, this is self-identifying. So they read the material and what the symptoms are. And a lot of times, like ADHD, like whatever, some types of neurodivergence and stuff, I look at it as a superpower that you can't tap into if you're clouding this sensitivity, this empathy, this literal ESP, this ability to, feel things with people if you're blocking it with sugar, flour, and caffeine. And one of the most unique, and I'm going to throw this in because it's always fascinated me. In her work, she has found that highly sensitive people, this is an amazing trait. They want to move society forward in a positive way. And what she's found is highly sensitive people don't think that way. They don't think about it. They don't think of the population as a whole. They don't think of, the kinds of, I mean, it would fit you and I and different people in our groups, that have defied, but they don't have that trait. And it's hard for me to get. And the only way she was able to get it is working with thousands of them over a 20 or 30-year career and identifying this, you know what I mean? How
Yeah.
do you identify a trait like that, like with an MRI or anything? It's not possible.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's really wonderful to think of it as a positive trait, and how if people are listening who feel like they're highly sensitive people can, stay abstinent from, whatever their addictions are, and be able to grow that trait to,
100%. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
to really
very
be able to
analogous.
utilize it.
It's very analogous to the ADHD or ADD who believes it to be a superpower because of its creativity. Yes, it lacks you in the execution and procrastinate. There's some downsides to it, but you have to manage those downsides and lean into the creativity part. And in this case, if, like you say, and I agree with you, that if people knew this was the case, maybe more would come forward to quit the stuff. It increases your ability, your empathic ability, I believe, but your ability to read not only others, but yourself, to know how
Oh,
you are feeling about something. This is one of the major things, and you know it, you're struggling with it, and I still struggle with bad, is like knowing how you're feeling about a specific thing or event or life situation, because we've spent a lifetime blocking it with these quote unquote legal and very available stuff. So
yeah. Or
that
illegal.
or illegal, like we were talking about before. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I think the key to it, and the good, you can read a room better, and you can get a sense if somebody's upset with you or whatever. But it's that being able to like get access to how you're really feeling so that you can grow in millions of ways.
And that's a perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about,
Yeah.
what happened to me this morning, just like within the last hour, and looking at what made me think of a topic called thought healing and
Okay.
like healing my thoughts. So I was walking into my place, and it's a pretty day. It's sunny. It's cool. It feels good. And I was looking at my phone, and there's a way to get on your phone and slide off all these things. They're not my notifications. It's I get on, I think it's when I get on the internet, and then I go to another internet site, and I go to another internet site. I don't turn it off. I don't understand completely what's going on. And my son today will help me walk through it, because I'm going to the Padres game tonight, and it's straw hat night. We're going to get straw hats. So, but I don't know how to swipe. It's just some little simple swipe.
Okay.
You have to be on the right screen, and then you just swipe, and you just swipe them all away. And so I was out in the sun, and I'm like, oh, maybe I can figure out how to do that. And I didn't have a lot of time because I was running late, but I was trying to swipe and I couldn't figure it out. And then I said to myself, damn, I can't figure it out. And the next thought that came, it wasn't a thought. It was a reflex, was I want coffee. And it was very interesting, because I was like, damn, I can't figure it out. I want coffee. And it came like that. And I just sat there, and I thought, wow, that wasn't even a thought. That was like a reflex. And I thought, that is so interesting, that when something happened that I was, frustrated with myself, I couldn't figure it out. Somebody had already explained it to me, but they did it like really quick. They're like, yeah, you just go like da, 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 and I didn't catch it.
Yeah.
So I felt negative about myself, and I was frustrated and angry. And then comes the thought to drink the coffee. But I saw this. It was so wild.
That's such a good explanation too. Like that's such a good example. Like that's just like
Such a good example. And so then I, hopefully, like, I might be able to get to the point where, because I think before, like, I would just want it, and then I don't know what's easier or harder. Like, if you're like, God, I want to go eat, blah, 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 blah. And then you can backtrack, and you can say, okay, well, what is it that happened, 2 minutes ago? What is it that happened 5 minutes ago? Something happened that made me want to go do this, and figuring it out that way, or doing it this way, where like something happens, then you get the urge to go do it.
Yeah. Those gaps get further apart with longer abstinence. In other words, you might have that craving, in 30 days, you might have that awareness, 10 minutes after you had that episode, you know what I mean? That, even 5 days has given you that quick insight, you know what I mean? I remember the episode where you're trying to figure out why you binge, and you were really beating yourself up and you couldn't figure it out. And we took us the whole episode to realize you had visited your mother that morning, It's the same thing, you know what I mean? It's the same kind of, there is an emotional need usually that it can be tracked back to a reason, you know what I mean? And that's our work, to be honest. That's the work that we try and get people to understand. That's not a sweet taste on their tongue they're looking for, or the coffee, the coffee is bitter, and, it's like, it's not the coffee, it's that limbic response, that dopamine, serotonin, the brain reward chemical that you're looking for, that you've used unconsciously for many years. And to cleave apart the understanding of where the quote unquote craving comes from is the work that we do, because then it makes sense. The journal is a good tool. How did you feel before and after the slip? How did you, there's a lot of ways, but mostly it's abstinence and support and constant reminder that it's not the sweet taste on the tongue. It's not the craving for the thing or the mental thought. You talked about it, and you started this off as the mental healing. It's not the mental thought for it. It's the deep, more limbic. And for limbic folks, the limbic brain helps your heartbeat when you don't have to think about it. And this is biology that's very difficult to fight against if you don't realize what's happening. This is a terrible analogy, but it's the only one that's coming off the top of my head. It's like a person's ability not to cheat on their wife because they can override a biological need. You know what I mean? I mean, it's
Mhm.
like it's the same type of thing. You're married, you don't want to do this, and you say that would destroy my life. In this case, it's so unconscious and so ubiquitous, the product, and so thought of as not not a big deal, that people don't think about it. They don't think that's why they keep craving. They keep doing it because they're not taking the second step, right? And they're not abstinent, so they're always being tickled. They're always like it's always in
Mhm.
there, and the instant gratification is there. But as you
Mhm.
get away from it, like you have for 5 days, you start to realize you got a second to think or a minute to think or whatever. Like that's not what you want to do. There's no reason to.
Well, it kind of bums me out that it's going to be like later because I don't know if I'll be able to find it. Sometimes I'll want to do things and I don't understand why it is that I want to, you know, go eat, go eat this or it's usually around food for me, so it's hard for me to think about anything else. Like
Right.
another example, or maybe not do something I'm supposed to go do because I'm just not motivated. Yeah, it'll get easier, right? It'll just get
Oh,
easier
it
to
absolutely gets easier.
okay, I
And
need to hear that.
what you're describing is the work, quote unquote. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have to take the time to sit down, take a deep breath. And I love this line. When you take the deep breath, you call yourself dear or love. You say, what do I really need, dear? You're talking to yourself. First, you're helping override the negative talk you've had for many years, but you're also trying to explore and bring to the surface what you're really craving, what's really going on.
So that brings me to another topic that I was thinking about, which is doing that, like talking to my inner child, to my
Yeah.
little Cammy, and
Yeah.
talking to her in a loving, caring way. And I've been working with my therapist, and we've been talking a lot about this. And so I had an example about that, a really good example last night because it was hot. I was hot and sticky, and if I take a shower, I sleep better at night. And so I was like, God, I need to take a shower because I've been hot and sticky from this hot day. And then, so I finally got in there and took a shower because I was just being lazy. And I thought, and then when I was drying off, I was drying myself off and I was looking at my body and I was trying to like love my body and be grateful for everything it does. Like all my functions work and I'm so grateful for this and this and this. And then I just started crying really hard. And my poor cat, Charlie, he doesn't know what to do when I do that. So he attacks me. I don't know why he thinks like if he attacks me, it's going to be better. So, but I was in the bathroom. So I closed the door really tight so he couldn't get in. And I'm just crying and I'm crying. It was because I, I was feeling the pain of the physicalness of what my eating has done to me, like how it has made me so big and so and so unhealthy in so many ways physically.
Yeah.
And so and so as I was crying, I was figuring this out. And then I said, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? And then I said, okay, I'm supposed to soothe little Cammy. So I tried to start talking to my little self. And I'm like, okay, you're okay, Cammy. You got really big because you were, dealing with the loss of your son, your second son, and because that's when it just really took off like wildfire. And I said, you raise these two boys that are just these most amazing young men. And I have so many friends who have children who have issues, just so many people who have kids who are trying to, get out there in life and just having so many troubles physically, mentally, emotionally, all those things.
Hmm.
And my boys are pretty stable right now. They're hanging in there. And it was because I stayed sober, and I went and raised them, but I drowned myself in sugar. But so I was justifying kind of like how I got there. And I'm like, you're working really hard on getting things better and things are going to get better. You just take it one meal at a time, one day at a time. Things are getting better. Things are definitely getting better now that I'm working on this, really honest abstinence. And so that was really helpful, to do that.
Yeah.
But that's when I realized there's two kinds of pain. There's the pain that I have now, like the pain that the eating disorder has provided me with a certain kind of pain, like this physical pain and the frustration of having to deal with this issue and everything. But then there's the other kind of pain that it's the pain of when you first started eating the sugar for the pain, to manage to get yourself in to survive the original pain.
Yeah. 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 I mean, this is a great awareness. Obviously, this is a great awareness that you're, having a little breathing room, a little time to start to cleave apart what the actual craving is, what the actual need for and because remember, it stands to reason, and I've heard you've read about this and understand it, but this complex PTSD, which I didn't really know about till last year, is an ongoing threat in childhood that rewires your brain in a strange way that you always feel you have a threat going on, right? And this is the same thing. Little Cammy was at 3 and 4 and 5 years old to help cope with a narcissistic mother and other life's challenges. And this is everybody. This is not just you, but it's like I always say this way. It's an unconscious thing because sugar and caffeine are so ubiquitously available, even to children. It's not like you need a beer on a Friday, you know exactly what you're doing. You're going to numb out because you had a rough week. This is just people feel that it's just, oh, I need a little coffee. I need a little sugar. I need a little chocolate, a little whatever. They don't do the work that we've been describing through this full episode. They don't have a little bit of a break to say, why am I doing? Why do I have that craving? What is it about? What is it soothing? What is it really soothing? Or have they done the work that you've done to understand that it is actually soothing something? That it's not just a desire for a sweet taste on the tongue. It is a desire for a deeper biochemical need to get a little bit of a reward chemical flowing, a little squirt, a little secretion. I heard an addiction guy use it yesterday. Secretion. I never heard it used, but that makes more sense even, a little secretion of dopamine, right? And that's what you're looking for. You just didn't, almost no one understands this paradigm. Almost no one understands eat less and exercise more to lose weight. No one understands that these ultra processed carbohydrates have taken over our emotional management systems, our lives, in such a easy, a ubiquitous way, and that's so available that this is what the process is. Like I've said many, many times, the emotional management people have about a half of the equation right, but they believe you can moderate. And for some people, and even if you can moderate, okay, it is worth it to you and to the world, anybody that's listening, to give yourself 90 days of abstinence and then make the decision, not
Amen.
You've tried the cabbage soup diet, you've tried speed, you've tried bariatric surgery, you've tried everything. Try this. Okay. Try one. It's not that freaking hard. And I'm not saying this to you. Okay. I'm saying it to the audience. Don't be a child about it. You've done all these crazy, expensive, time consuming things. Try 100% abstinence with support, with this ability to ask someone who's done it, what's going on with you now? Okay. They'll make it make sense. Otherwise, your biological needs are going to override your rational thought process, your nucleus accumbens. You know what I mean? Sorry, I didn't mean to get off on a tear, but you set me up like a kid
No, it was.
at a T-ball whip.
It was an awesome tear, man. Everyone's going to love it. And that's why I think coaching through it is so important. Like your 30-day sugar challenge, I think that individual coaching through that challenge would be so important, because as you're in such turmoil, at least to keep you calm, not maybe to do some of that deep, deep work. That's probably going to come later.
Yes.
But at least to keep you calm enough, to make it through, because it's so much turmoil going on. And I've been dipping my toes in it, I'll stay abstinent for a little while, then I won't, then I'll stay abstinent, then I won't. And, so being in it for the long haul
that's our addiction to chaos. It genuinely is. It's addiction to chaos. I never really thought of that as a real thing, but I know it now to be a real thing.
Drama.
Yeah, drama. It leads to your, or it plays into, or it runs parallel with the ease in which you're able to soothe stuff like that. Or it becomes the reason you're craving. Because if you have drama, then you got to get something to crave with. You got to something to soothe with.
Calm yourself down.
Calm yourself down. Right, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are going to be done today for now. And this has been wonderful. And we'll continue next week with healing. I like the term emotional management system.
Yes.
Working on healing the EMS.
Yeah.
So thanks, everybody.
I like your term of emotional healing, emotional thought healing, or what was it?
Yeah. I just said thought healing, but I like that thought healing, like heal your thoughts, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's those negative thoughts that really drive me that come in. And this morning when it was like, you don't know how to do this on your phone and all these negative thoughts were coming. It was such a statement when I heard it say, I want coffee. Yeah. It was kind of like a 2-year-old, like throwing a tantrum if they weren't going to get what they want.
That's what I meant by the adulting process. It's like there is a little bit of adulting that has to happen through this, mainly to get the abstinence, because the abstinence provides what we've talked about and what you've described is you get a little breathing room. It's not an instant gratification thing, right? You don't immediately run to the sugar when you have the craving. You get to say, wait a minute, time out. Like, what's really going on? And that's the work originally. After a while, you don't even have to think about that, That's
totally the work, because my big motto as an addict is I want what I want when I want it, and I want it now.
That's exactly.
So,
it often amazes me that the discoveries of those types of sayings, which are popular in 12-step stuff, that is so in line with the neuroscience that we're discovering now.
I know. It's so cool.
And it's the pattern recognition of hundreds of thousands and probably millions of people going through this and realizing that's an addict's trait, right? It's like, I want what I want when I want it, And the reason is, it sounds immature, but really it's like, it's a biological need or a biological craving that you set up by the substances you've ingested.
Yeah. So it does create that circle, kind of like this circle that, abstinence can break. Abstinence can break that circle.
But when you break it, there's a lot of stuff you got to learn to keep it.
Okay.
There's a lot, especially emotionally.
Okay. Well, I'm a good student.
You are.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, Mike.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.